Namaskar. Welcome to Kalinga Literary Festival's Bhava Samvad.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bhava Samvad is a platform where we are discussing, debating, and engaged in various discourse on literature, art, culture, politics, journalism, society, and many more.
Yeah.
And our viewers, they're watching us live stream in Facebook, in Twitter, in YouTube, and in our own page. So today, the man of the moment is a very young man. Let me tell you, he is a very young man of 80, 80 plus. Dr. Sunil Kothari, the pioneering dance historian, art critic of the country, a man who is a trained chartered accountant but left accountancy, came to art. A devoted man who had who dedicated all his life for the service of Indian classical dance music. He's a versatile personality. He had written on theater. He had written on painting. Two of greatest painters of our time, Bhupen Kakkar and Ghulam Muhammad. They were his friends, classmates. Sunil Bhai was a professor of art and aesthetic, left his job, but he is always there around the stage, in and around the stage. He is the only dance historian in this country who had written on every classical dance forms in
Hmm.
India. And welcome, Sunil Bhai.
Welcome.
Uh,
Thank you.
it's a great opportunity to talk to you. And as I introduced you, he's a Padma Awardee, by the way. He's a Padma Awardee. He's the recipient of highest honor of Kendra Sangeet Natak Academy, that is called Academy Ratna. He's an Academy Fellow and many awards. Actually, if I start counting awards uh, before his name, it will be too long actually. But the only introduction is that he is the youngest dance critic. He is the youngest man whose energy is always in high. So let's
Like
talk
that.
to him. Let's talk to him. He's our own Sunil Bhai. We always forget that he is a Padma Shri, he is a Academy Fellow, but for us, he is our very dear Sunil Bhai. Welcome, Sunil Bhai.
Yes.
My first question to you
Yeah.
will be: you were into chartered accountancy, you were into accountancy, into mathematics. You were a student of mathematics, you wanted to do calculation, accountancy, auditing, others, vagera, vagera. But how do you come to dance criticism? How do you come to this journey? Actually, it's a complete different journey that you pick up. You your study was something different, but your profession becomes something very completely opposite direction you took away. Why and how?
See, I come from a Gujarati Banya family. We are all Vaishnav. I was the 10th son. We were 7 brothers and 3 sisters, but I was the youngest son. And being Vaishnav, our parents took us to our residing deity Srinathji in Srinathwara. So I remember when I was only 4 or 5 year old in 1938, my mother and father went to Jatra of Srinathwara and stayed in Vanmali Dharmashala. So every morning I'll get up early and go with my mother to watch the darshan. In the youngest, she'll teach me Sanskrit. And if she say, if you learn Yamunashtakam, I'll give you 1 paisa. Remember, on those years in 1938, the copper coin had a hole like the mint peppermint. And I would
Okay.
ask mother that how many shlokas I have to learn, ma? And she would say that you have to learn Yamuna Shtakam, say 8 shlokas. So I said, oh my God, I'll become very rich. So she would pull my ear and say, ultimately, Baniya ka beta hai, thinks of only Bani. Doesn't think of the shloka that I'm teaching him. I'm giving a ground of Vidya. He will going to be very helpful for him in life. But however, those in the young days, when we were children, I learned by shloka by heart. And then if you are very good in memory, your father and mother and neighbors come to present you like a exhibition, start singing. And I would start singing Namami Namaham Sakala Siddhe Tu Muda Murari Pada Pankaja Sradamanda Renutkatam Tak 1 paisa. Second to Tatasana Kanana Prakatamota Puspamuna Surasrus Mujita Svarapikushia Bibratam, another paisa. So I got 8 shlokas. But what I think Kedar was important that I got taste for Sanskrit language, because when you learn when as a young child, you remember it very well. And then I began to visualize the paintings when my mother, because when you go to Srinadwara, you see on the wall beautiful Vrindavan painting. Even the paper cuttings are very beautifully done of the gopis. The cows are beautifully shown on the wall with the handprint on the cow, and the horns are beautifully decorated with the bells and all. So when Ma would sing or I would recite Namami Yamunamaham, I would get an image of Yamunaji, with beautiful photograph of
Hmm.
Yamunaji, with beautiful Vanmala, and then moving around and the beautiful water flowing, etc. So these images remain in my mind. When I grew up, I began to understand that it was the childhood memories which were helping me. Ultimately, I was in a large Banya Gujarati family, and then out of the 7 brothers, one brother was in printing, one was in Air Force. Very, very rare for a Gujjubai to go in 1938 after World War to join the Air Force, and he had joined Air Force. Third brother was also in printing. Fourth was in cotton business. Fifth was in plastic business. Sixth was in sales tax. And me, I was to be made a chartered accountant. Now you can't make up your mind in very young, and when in a large Gujarati Banya family, you follow what your parents say. You have to follow them. There is no economic independence. There is no independent idea. Just follow what elders say. So I decided that I will have to do by chartered accounting. But my eldest brother was very fond of me. Being the youngest in the family, he almost kept me with him. He had no issue at that time. Later on, my bhabhi got 2 sons. But till then, I was almost raised up by my elder brother. He said, well, he's throwing limbs in all directions. Let us
He
engage
was
in
a
picture.
painter. Was he a
Let us engage.
painter?
He was no, my brother was in the printing business, very big printing business.
Okay,
Eldest
okay,
brother,
okay.
eldest brother. So I began to learn Kathak from one guru by name Badri Prasad. And by the time I was 7 or 8 year old, they took me to Devdar's class in Bombay near Opera House, where one Ratikant, by name Ratikant Desai, he was teaching Kathak dance. He was training from, as they say later on when I began to write on Kathak for the Gharana, he belonged to Hazari Prasad Gharana, Hazari Lal Gharana, and that was also called Banaras Gharana. However, I
Okay.
did not know all these things about gharanas or what dance, but I began to enjoy dance. I began to enjoy rhythm, and they encouraged me till I was in the matriculation. By the time I appeared for the matriculation exam, which I passed with flying colors, they said, no, now you have to stop dancing. I stopped dancing, but it happened so that by 1952, either I saw for the first time Sitara Devi in Bombay at Rang Bhavan,
Sita, okay, the
dancing
great Sita.
Bharatnatyam. So when she was dancing, instead of one Sitara Devi on the stage, I saw 100, 4 or 10 girls. गोपियां आती है, शी सेइंग एंड गाती है कि कोई यहाँ से आई, कोई वहां से आई, कोई नटखट आई, कोई छेल छबीली आई, किसी ने श्रृंगार बनाया, कोई मथन धो रही थी, और कृष्णा की बांसुरी सुनी तो गोपियां भागी. And then they went and performed Ras Leela with Krishna. When I came back home, I told my mother that, look, what you taught me about Namami Yamuna Moham and all, I saw this dancer by one lady called Sitara Devi, and though she was one on the stage, I could see what 5 or 6 girls were there, and 5 or 6 dancers were performing. I don't know what is this magic, but I would like to learn more of this dance. It also happened at that time at King's Circle in Bombay, at a suburb. I happened to see those 3 women dancers called Lalita, Padmini, and Ragini. They are known as Travancore sisters. Among them, Padmini
Okay.
had performed with Raj Kapoor in Jagte Raho film. They were film stars also, but they were politically, it's correct to say nowadays that they were quite sexy, quite bosomy, and very attractive women. And when I watched that dance, and particularly I saw the Varanam, I fell for it. I've never seen any dance so beautifully done by these three women in Bharatanatyam. So when I went and met backstage to her mother, Saraswati Devi, she said, you have to go and meet a great guru called Kalyan Sundaram, who is in the audience. And I was introduced to Guru Kalyan Sundaram. He was my guru for the Bharatanatyam. He is now 90 plus. And Guruji said, if you want to learn, you will have to come all the way from Bombay. We were staying in Kalba Devi near Bhuleshwar area. So the bus will leave in the morning at 5:30 or 6 o'clock. It will take 1 hour to reach to King Circle in Matunga, where Guruji had the class called Raja Rajeshwari Bharatnatyam Kalamandi. I began to learn Bharatanatyam there. But it was not very easy, Kedar. Doing Bharatnatyam with Arai Mandi and all the Irmanams and all, it took some time. But I didn't give it up. Going for chartered accounting was also a tough job that you have to go to the office, you have to get ready by 10 o'clock. And at that time, I believe I happened to meet Dr. Mulkraj Anand in a lecture in Bombay near Boribandar, near Capital Cinema. He was talking about something on dance. I had read by that time some of the books at the Bombay University Library in Bombay at the Rajabai Tower, a book by name The Other Mind, and the author was Beryl Dizot. She was a Dutch woman, but wrote beautifully about Kathakali and about Shantarao, the great Bharatnatyam and Kathakali dancer. She wrote about Rukmini Devi, she wrote about Saroja Mohan Khokkar's wife. And when I read that, I thought the whole new world is existing on that side. Who is this woman? So she had mentioned about Alice Bonner and her sister Georgette Bonner. Both the
Yeah,
women,
yeah.
Alice Bonner helped Uday Shankar, and Georgette Bonner also came to India, and she also traveled with her throughout Kerala and wrote about Kathakali. Now, while talking about Georgette Bonner, Munkaraj Anand only just mentioned George Bonner. So I raised my hand and I said, no, sir, I'm sorry. You are not saying the correct name. Her name is Georgette Bonner, and she's the sister of Alice Bonner. He was very impressed. After the lecture, he said, what is your name? What are you doing? What is this chartered account? Come on, come and have join. Come and have lunch with me. So when I went to his house and had lunch with him, he said, listen, there are 10,000 chartered accountants in the world. You are a stupid and idiot Gujarati Baniya. Don't lie like a shopkeeper. Come on, join my company. Come and I'll tell you and go and give letters. Start writing on Indian dance. 1957, September, the first issue of Bharatanatyam came out, which was edited by Mulkraj Mohan Khokkar. Mulk was the general editor, and Mohan
It was
Khokkar was the editor for
it, it was it was Marg,
Marg.
was it
Marg
Marg?
is a
Yes, okay.
Marg is a quarterly. So the quarterly issue was on Bharatanatyam, followed by Kathak,
Okay.
Kathakali, Odissi much later. So when I read Bharatanatyam from cover to cover, I didn't know that there was article was on Kuchipudi, there was on Bharatanatyam, Bhagavad Mela. There were 6 villages mentioned: Tanjore, Shulamangalam, Shaliyamangalam, Uthakad, and other names, 2, 3 names more. And in these 6 villages, Kedar, every Narsi Jayanti in month of May, they will perform Bharatnatyam dance dramas, Prahlad Charitram, Rukmini Kalyanam, and it just fascinated me. By that time, I was already well known in Gujarat by writing Gujarati for a magazine called Kumar and another magazine called Sanskriti run by Umashankar Joshi. So when the
Great.
editor said, you seem to know about this dance form, why don't you start a series? Start writing articles on dance. And it happened so that by 1958, All India Dance Seminar was to take place in New Delhi at Vigyan Bhavan by Sangeet Natak Academy. When I read Mulkraj Mahotwav's article on Bhagavad Mela, Kuchipudi, I told Mulkraj Anand I want to translate it and I would like to go and meet this gentleman. And I think my heart is not much in chartered accounting. And if there is a college which can give a degree in Bharatnatyam, maybe I can go and get my degree in Bharatnatyam. And maybe I can become a lecturer and devote my time to dancing instead of calculating all the figures and filing returns of the income tax for people who are going to become rich and become a total corrupt Gujarati. under the table, pay 3,000 to income tax वाला, इसको 5 चटाओ, उसको 5 चटाओ, धंधा नहीं करना है. So I went, I went and met Mohan Khokar, and that was another thing. It changed my life. When I went Mohan Khokar, it was I still remember the date, it was 16th of December, 1957. And Mohan Khokar, as you know, was very man of few words. He won't speak much. But when I went to his house and stayed in Alkapuri, I found in home books and books, paper clippings, letters. Everything was about dance, 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 photographs. And when I went through all those collection of his at that time, I was very impressed. I did not know there can exist a world like this. He told me that, look, Sunil, you are not good looking as Ram Gopal or Uday Shankar, so forget it. You and I both will not be on the stage. We should be in a hospital. Look at our face. But you can do one thing. If you enjoy dance, you can start writing about dance. You seem to have a feeling for language. You seem to have a feeling for tal, lay, chand. You know Sanskrit very well. And if you can start writing Gujarati, English, whatever, that will help you a lot. I do advise you to come to attend the All India Dance Seminar in 1958 in Delhi. That will also introduce you the whole new world that you want to watch. So the die was cast, and it was in 1958, in month of April. I met all the people, Babulal Doshi. Now Babulal Doshi had come there.
I will come to that chapter actually. When whenever you start speaking, it's like going one legend to another legend. Starting from Mulak Rajaram to Mohan Khokar to Uma Shankar Joshi ji,
Babulal Doshi.
Travancore sisters, Kalyan Sundaram Pillai. So you have worked with all the geniuses of the dance world and art world.
It was just
My
by chance.
question to
I don't think it was I had planned anything like that, but one
No,
thing
no,
led to another.
I want to concentrate more on Odisha and Odissi because we
And
have
rather
more
I
Odisha
so that
specific audience.
was
That
seminar.
I want to ask you. I want to ask you actually when you started writing on dance. That time Odissi was coming up as a new classical dance form. It was not even recognized at that time. Can you really recall when you saw first
So
Odissi dance?
the first Odissi dance I saw was in All India Dance Seminar where Babulal Doshi had brought with Kalicharan Patnaik Deva Prasad Das. And Dev Prasad Das was to
Okay,
demonstrate. And he had started teaching Indrani Rahman. So it appears that on the previous night of 31st March, Indrani performed Odissi in the small theater in capital, which we had gone and seen. That was the first time I saw that celestial beauty, Indrani Rahman. What a good-looking woman. I saw her Odissi dance, but later on, what was interesting was to see Dev Prasad dance. So when Dev Prasad dance performed all the Abhanga, Tribhanga, Chauka and all to the lecture by Karicharan Patnaik, that opened my eyes. And it appeared that there is some dance form about which none was knowing much. Barring say Rukmini Devi had gone and seen Odissi, but she thought it was a variation of Bharatnatyam. But Babulal Doshi was very keen that this form, which is called at that time they used to call it Odissi because he was from Orissa. So Babulal Doshi had already established Kala Vikas Kendra, and he caught hold of me in the All India Dance Seminar and told me, Sunil Bhai, you are a Vaishnav. You do one thing. You come only to do darshan of Jagannath Puri. Come to Jagannath Puri. We'll go there. Bring your mother also, so nobody will object. Come and watch what is happening in terms of Odissi dance. At that time, he did mention Kirutar Mahapatra. He mentioned Kumkum Das. She was Kumkum Mohanty later on. And then Sanjukta Panigrahi. And luckily, Sanjukta Panigrahi had come to All India Dance Seminar. In the seminar, she was performing not Odissi but Bharatanatyam. Though she studied Odissi
okay.
very young. So she danced Bharatnatyam in Kutral Kuruvanji dance drama of Rukmini Devi Arundel. I met, she was Sanjukta Mishra. I met Sanjukta, I met Karichana Patnaik, I met Babulal Doshi. I saw a Jayanti Ghosh also who was learning Bharat Odissi from Kelu Babu at that time. And then she performed some Abhinay number. But I don't have much more memory of the Abhinay itself. But when I came to Orissa during the vacation period, when I already taken a job as a part-time lecturer in Gujarati College, And Babulal Doshi say,
It
come and
was
stay with
it was in 1958 or in 60s.
58, 58 onwards. 58 was the
Okay,
first time that Odissi came on the national scene because of
okay,
Mahendra Mansingh guiding Indrani Rahman to go and see the Mahari and meet Dev Prasad Das. And Dev Prasad Das agreed to teach her and go and travel with her world over. So, not that she knew much of Odissi dance, but she knew some of the items. And Jagabande Jagannath Gunadham Jaya, what Kari Babu wrote. So, she should dance on that. So, three or four items were there, not much. Even we only saw three or four items. But when we started research work, when Babulal Doshi called me to Bhubaneswar and I began to go to various places, the story began that at that time Kelu Babu was employed by Kala Vikas Kendra. They were teaching there. He was there for more than 15 years. So when I began in 63 going to Kala Vikas Kendra, I began to watch Kelu Babu. And what a marvelous teacher. Kelu Babu was not a very great personality. He had black teeth, but he had good hair at that time. He was very young. But his body and proportion and when he took chauka and various bhang, etc., your eyes will not take, you cannot take your eyes off of his body. And he was a great teacher. So at that time, people were learning, those young girls, all these girls were learning. Kumkum Mohanty and then Sajita Panigrahi and Minati Mishra. And I can't count all the names of these people, but I remember these three, four names very well. Premvada Mohanty had already performed and then I think she had gone abroad for further studies. But I was told that in the 52 or 54 All India uh,
Youth
inter-collegiate
festival.
competition, university competition had taken place. इसमें प्रेम बदा
Yes.
मोहंती had performed one dance which was not known as Odissi. Three or four items, but having seen them, Indrani went to Bhubaneswar to find out what was this about and she met Mahari and all. Now, when I stayed with Babulal Doshi, he introduced me not only to Odissi dance, he introduced me to Odissi culture. The Odissi, he took me to Kumkum Mohanty's house and I first time had my pakhad bath. I did not know all the varieties of the wonderful food that had, and then met the most beautiful lady. Her mother, Kumkum's mother, was a beauty. And I met Bama Charan Das, who was the education officer. And Kumkum was learning sometimes privately at home, sometimes she'd come to the class, and Guruji will always call her Makad. And you would call her you are a monkey. But Guruji would do all the makeup very beautifully on her face, all the Chitravali, etc. And all the daughters, they were like daughters to him. Some of the dance dramas were at that time, but not much that I had known. But there was something definitely, a form was coming up. By 66, of course, Odissi got recognition as classical dance form, and Sanjukta performed, and Kelu Babu got the Sangeet Natak Academy Award. But my days I spent in Odisha were very helpful to me. I started learning Odia language, but it was not very easy. Take Odia Janosi, but I wanted to learn in order to know the songs very beautifully. If the songs are so beautiful, to Lati Gopadana, Manare Kadiya Suna, all these wonderful songs, and the Vinay to it, what Guruji would do was marvelous. My writing seriously on Odissi became with help of Dhirendra Patnaik. He was the first man to write a book in English on Odissi dance. And he took me along with him to show the various sculpture. I'll go to the various temples and I will remember where Ilyana now stays, that near that temple, there is one small sculpture of Lord Shiva dancing on Nandi. So the Nandi Tandav he explained
Okay.
to me. So I
That
believe
was
that
in
when you go Kelucharan Mahapatra to the Mukteshwar temple, Parshurameshwar temple, Guruji would show that this is Chauka, this is Tribhanga, this is Atibhanga, this is Abhanga. And then he would also show the sculpture of the Shavatar on the Mukteshwar temple. If you go to the Mukteshwar temple, Guruji will show you on the ceiling the dance of Lord Krishna, Ganapati's dance. Now all this which started collecting information, and I believe when I was there, Bahadar Raut had come back from Kalakshetra. So also Sanjukta also had come back having studied Bharatnatyam, and both of them introduced the element of Santari Bhav. Not that people did not know what Santari Bhav would be, but it was not done more elaborately as we now see, as we had seen Odissi also, as what we saw in Bharatanatyam. So I believe that both Mayadhar Raut and Sanjukta's contribution is very important in terms of bringing the study of Abhinay Darpana, what they studied in Kalakshetra, Natyarambe, Vari, Vahe, Vade, Vastu, Nishedane. all the vinyogas of the Hasta, etc., will all become part of this. Now, as you very well, all of us, we know about all the four gurus. The guru, the three major gurus were Kelutar Mahapatra, Adi Guru, Pankaj Charan Das, and Dev Prasad Das. And later on, we met also other gurus later on. But when they were coming together, it was decided, along with the help of Dhiraj Patnaik, that we should give a stature and the form of the like Margam, we should create a form of Odissi dance. And that was very important in terms of what was happening to Odissi was very important. That Odissi became sophisticated. There are three or four items. The three or four items with the help of Guru Tirukara Mahapatra and Bhuvanendra Mishra, the marvelous musician, wonderful musician, learning from Venkateshwar Naidu from, Telangana part. And of course, we had our Raghunath Panigrahi singing very well for Sanjukta and all. So all these elements coming together. When they started, as we all know about Jayantika, the wonderful work that Madhi Puranam and Ilyana Kitaristi have done by bringing out that wonderful volume on Jayantika by Nartanam, it gives a fantastic history. Now, I was very young, so I wouldn't know what Mohandev Sundar Goswami was there with whom Keluva was learning Odissi, but he was a Kottippa dancer and he belonged to the Patakitrakar. So, with Babulal Doshi, we also went to Raghurajpur to Keluchar Mahapatra's residence and we saw all the Kottippa young dancers and how they were performing. So, Guruji sometimes would tell when he was in mood to tell the story, he would tell us that this is how my training began. I was a very young boy and I had joined later on, as you already know, the history of Annapurna Theatre. And
Yeah, yeah.
Guruji was not a very great dancer at that time. He was playing tabla, he was playing mridanga, but he was an all-rounder. So when there was some play was to take place, Adi Guru Pankaj Randas organized one item called the Shautar. And we have old picture of Guruji and Guruma, and they perform together. The
So that was
Shautar was there.
that was in 50s, I think. That was in 40s actually.
Maybe
Yeah,
when
but
the
Sunil bhai,
Annapurna thing was
in between
started, when was
in between
Annapurna
I
theatre?
lost in between I lost my communication. Actually, there was an internet
I
problem.
know,
Uh,
I know.
I want
Doesn't matter.
to uh, I want to come back to another chapter. Actually, you have worked with many Odissi dancers, starting from Indrani Rahman to Sanjukta Panigrahi to Kumkum Mahanti to Jayanti Ghosh
Vinati
and
Mishra,
Vinati Mishra to Aruna Mahanti to the little ones actually. Even the smaller girls who have started learning yesterday, she also
I
knows
know,
you as Sunil Bhai. I mean, I
I know.
suppose this Angelina or the smaller girls, they also know you. So you have seen a generations of dancers. What are the changes that you have marked, starting from Indrani Rahman to up to now? Actually, what are the changes Odissi is witnessing? And as a ardent art critic, as a very keen follower of Odissi dance, can you just explain us what are the changes that is happening with Odissi choreography,
See,
Odissi presentation?
one cannot isolate Odissi dance from the contemporary other dance forms, say Bharatnatyam, Kathak, Manipuri, and other dance forms also. So all the dance forms are developing in a way. As we know, on the history of Indian dance, the four major gurus have come. One is Keruchana Mahapatra, one is Birju Maharaj, one is Venkata Satyam, one is Guru Bipin Singh. These are the gurus to change the whole character of the dance form. Their contribution is immense. And that is where Keluchana Mahapatra's contribution is immense contribution. That he is the one guru who has hundreds of students. Students are countless students are there, and he allowed each one to have her own style. But four was correct. The fundamentals are very correct. When Sonal Mansingh and the Kumkum and Sanjukta, they all were performed, Madhi Mudgal in Delhi, and then Reena, our Rani Parna, she also was learning Kathak and Odissi.
Yes.
Now, so these were very important time period was very important that when other form was having, say, Sanchari Bhav, a dance drama form, solo form, there were duets and all, And thanks to the wonderful music, the genius of the Sanyog of Manikanchan Yog of Kelchana Mahapatra and Bhuvanesh Mishra, the Pallavis were choreographed wonderfully. And that added to the Nritta portion. It was already they started with Jagavande Vananda Gunanatha Jaya and Jagannatha Swami, Nayana Pathagami. All the prarthanas were being done, etc. And the form came. So the form began to be established like Bharatnatyam, Tillana, etc. We had worked out a Guruji form of you begin with prarthana, you begin with the Vanikya Vina Mukalayayanti, then come to Batu Nritya, then come to Pallavi, and then go sometime Abhinay Pallavi, and then go over to the various padas, the songs, and then come to moksha. Now this format began to get established by the time 60 onwards, and by 67, 70, 75, it got very established. Established the
Okay.
point that the proliferation of the workshops that Guru Keruchand Mahapatra conducted. I remember then when we saw Guruji was to visit Bombay, they had invited him for the Kalke Kalakar Festival. And I was conducting Kalke Kalakar Festival, presenting dancers and dance gurus for a week at PJ Hall. And Guruji came for the first time to Bombay. And I was very keen that Guruji can explain the Baksha movement, how the body moves, etc. But he won't take off his banyan. He was feeling very shy. We conveyed him, so he took the body, the banyan, and then he began to perform Muntra Ganan in the audience. And Sunil Kothari, Mrali Sarabai, Javeri sisters and all. And many dancers were watching for the first time this young man who was not a very good looking man. But the moment he came on the stage and started doing Chaukabhangi, and then he did the Ribanga and began to perform, people were completely under a spell. And Mutrad Anand, after the demonstration, came backstage to meet Guruji. And he almost touched his feet and they said, "You are a genius. You are a great, Ratna of our Odisha. And we all look up to you for developing this dance form further." Guruji began to come later on, but I will tell one story more. At 1954, Babula Doshi wrote me for the fundraising program of Kala Vikas Kendra in Bombay. And he had the courage to bring Dhimsa and Chow dance, so Mayurban Chow dancers. And he also brought one Banchani, the young Gotipur dancers. He brought Kumkum Mohanty. He brought number of dancers together. And that was the first time that a regularly beautiful production was done in Bombay at the Birla Theatre. Babu Bhai, being Babu Bhai, he knew very well all the Vaishnavas of Bombay. They all roped them in, and all the Vaishnavas gave all the money. He said, "Give the money. This is all seva for Jagannath Puri, and you must contribute." I must say the Gujaratis of Bombay, thanks to Babulal Doshi, gave a lot of money, and we had the building in Cuttack for the Karavikas Kendra. Now, when Guruji came in 64 to Bombay, he began to draw attention of number of other dancers. There was one Jaya Dhir in Bombay, and she was the first one
Okay.
who said कि आप बम्बई वापस आइए हमको सिखाइए dance. At that time, there was one girl called Pratima Baby. Later on, we know Pratima, who Pratima was, but Pratima also joined and learned from Guruji for some time. And they produced one dance drama called Gita Govind, in which Jaya Dhir and Pratima also participated. Our Ratikant has brought out that book, Memory of Guruji, with lots of photographs. You'll find one of the old photographs over there. Now, when Guruji was making name, he also began to travel and give workshops in other cities. He came to Delhi, and Madhvi Mudgal and Bhaiji, her father, they offered the place for him to conduct the workshop. So number of dancers began to come to Madhvi's place at Gandharva Mahavidyalaya, and they started learning Odissi from Guruji. Now, this was wonderful thing happening in terms of the learning of Guruji technique, because by that time, other dance forms had come up already. Kathak dance was raised in the city of Delhi. So was Bharatanatyam. Yamini Krishnamurti and all. At that time, Sonal was not doing Bharatanatyam, Odissi, but later on she studied Bharatanatyam, Odissi also. But they were all prima donnas
Yeah.
performing
But
in
at that
Delhi.
time, I think, Sunil bhai, what I have learned actually, that many dancers, they were learning two or three dance forms actually. Yamini ji was learning Kuchipudi and also
And
Odissi. And many, like Sonal ji was learning Bharatanatyam and Odissi. So, they were learning many dance forms together actually.
Now
Sanjukta
that
Panigre
was
was
a
learning
period.
Bharatnatyam, then she shifted to Odissi. And how do you see this amalgamation that learning multiple dance forms and
See,
uh,
I can give you
interacting
example.
with each other? Do you don't you miss that?
The dancers were very keen to learn other techniques also, but they soon realized
Yes,
that
please.
learning all the techniques was not possible in one lifetime. So Yamini gave up and she studied Kuchipudi all right very well. For instance, Malvika Sarukai, she learned Bharatnatyam, but she learned also Odissi from Keluabu and Ramani Ranjan Jaina. Alarmel Valli also learned Odissi from Guru Kelutan Mahaprabhu. But then they all realized that either we make up our mind to study Odissi or Bharatanatyam. And they gave up Odissi and they concentrated on Bharatanatyam. Sonal also later on gave up Bharatanatyam and devoted all her time to learning Odissi. So there were trends which were at that time happening around there. And of course, when you with the passage of time, with the support from the government, from the publicity, the media, the conferences, etc., the form drew attention of many people. Odissi had also an advantage, according to me, that the music of Odissi is most absolutely haunting music. Even today, after 40 years, whenever I hear Shankarabharam Pallavi or Arabi Pallavi, my heart loses. I am absolutely on cloud nine. It was so beautiful that it helped immensely. And there was a singer like Raghunath Panigre for Sanjukta Panigre, as Yamini had a sister, Jyotishmati, who sang for her. So these were the trends which were able to help the forms to establish very beautifully. And then, luckily for Odissi, it became pan-Indian. It was not only Odissi girl. In Bharatanatyam, we find that number of dancers were being from Tamil Nadu, but also from Gujarat. Sonal Mansingh studied. There were other dancers who also studied, Daksha Mashruwala, Devi Bashu, and Jhelam Paranjape. So, Odissi had, thanks to the workshop which were conducted by Guru Kirutan Mahapatra in Bombay at the National Center for the Performing Arts, the Odissi got into a prominence. And this prominence was also at the same time the production was by Guruji was polishing it further and further. It developed and further development. Now, when we think of, I have often told about Guruji's imagination and the ability to convert even an Ashtapadi into beautiful poetry, like parallel to what Jayadev wrote in Sanskrit, that Patati Patatre, Vitalita Patre, Shankita Udyanam. So a bird comes and settles on the branch and the leaf falls. And when the leaf falls, by the falling of the leaf, Krishna is waking, oh, she must have come. Now this imagination was great. So another example, when I was watching Guruji teaching Sonal at Mayadhar's house, at Dr. Mayadhar Mansingh's house, the Ashtapadi Kuruyodhu Nandana Chandana Charchita Shishira Tarena Karena Payodare, it was specially choreographed by for Sonal Mansingh. So Guruji had to show the sequence of the intense union, physical union of Radha and Krishna, which comes in the sloka ke Dharana Varan Kandare, and that's a very economical way. Guruji just stood taking a position of Rati Mudra and suggested what is to be suggested about the union of Lord Krishna and Radha. Similarly, when he was doing the hair of Radha, he makes
Oh, that's
beautiful.
one of the greatest.
And then she looks into the ring where there is a mirror, and the mirror, the reflection of Krishna is seen. And when she looks at the mirror, she looks back at Krishna, and Krishna embraces her again. Now, where was the ring? Where was the ring? Where was the ring? Where was the mirror? And how this imagination came? I have never forgotten this for the rest of my life. I still remember how Guruji had this imagination. And then the poet Eliot had said, who gave mirror to the women, maidens, and maiden the eyes to look at the mirror and then look at themselves. Now, these are marvelous poetry. The resonance, the association, adhyas are marvelous. I had the great advantage having stayed with Guruji. Often, whenever I came, I stayed in his house. At night, Guruji will teach. As is well known that once he wanted to choreograph Shiv Tandav, he called Sanjukta Panigi in the middle of the night. So we have Raghunath, and they came until morning, the lesson went on. Time was no limitation. Anytime Guruji said, and I must confess that the dancers knew that this is a great time for them to learn from as much as they can, like blotting paper. Take as much as they can take from Guruji, nothing like that. Now, I believe the Guruji's ability to teach, choreograph, organize, and individually also the dancers It was very marvelous to watch what he was doing, etc. And that is why the horizontal growth is marvelous as well as the vertical growth. The horizontal growth we see in terms of so many dancers, and vertical growth we see what happened to Sanjukta, what happened to Kumkum, what happened to Sonal, what happened Guruji later on taught his own daughter-in-law, Sujata Mahapatra, and now the legacy will continue with Pratisha Mahapatra, etc. And then, of course, fortunate as he was, Ratikan Mahapatra, when he was young, he was very naughty when he was young. He had not understood the great responsibility as a son of a great guru. But the moment he became aware, he gave up all his Viddas attitude and started learning very seriously from Guruji. And what a wonderful choreographer he has turned to be. Of course, it is always difficult to live under the shadow of a great genius like Guruji, like Satyajit Roy's son. Sandeep would have the same problem. But he learned very beautifully to play Mridangam. And now, as we can see, with his own understanding, how he has started creating choreography. So many choreographies when we watch of Ratikan, we are reminded of that the legacy what Guruji established, created, is wonderfully carried out. And the way the Kiluchur Mahapatra Awards ceremonies are organized are an example. And it is not limited only to Odissi, but he brought Kathak also, he brought dances from other traditions also, and brought to Orissa a certain awareness that ultimately ours is not the only thing. For instance, if you go and see Nrityagram, look at the way Nrityagram is flowered. Surupa, Vijayani, and other dancers. Out of nobody, I often used to tell, I will tell a story which is very interesting, which I have written in my autobiography in English, that one day in Sangeet Research Academy in Calcutta, when I was professor in Rabindra Bharat University, Guruji called me and we went to do a lecture demonstration with Pratima Bedi in Sangeet Research Academy with Vijay Kichulu, and number of other people and musicians were there. So Pratima performed, but Pratima was not very good in tal. And I used to tell Guruji कि आप उसको ताल दिखाइए, इसका ताल ठीक नहीं है, और मुझे अच्छा नहीं लगता है. Somehow she managed and she learned the tal, etc. But once while dancing, the photographs came illustrated weekly where she had not put chunni covering herself. Now Guruji was embarrassed, but Guruji, people must have told Guruji, देखो इसने क्या किया, ये रंडी ने तुम्हारा नाम खराब कर दिया. So Guruji called me, और Shamani Dalal Sahib was Padati, he was teaching. बोला कि देखो क्या किया, तो मैंने बोला कि देखो गुरुजी, वो तुम्हारी डिवोटेड स्टूडेंट है, आप ये रंडी को चंडी बनाइए, तब मैं मानूंगा. तो पहले तुम मुझे चैलेंज कर रहे हो. एंड ही कंपोज फॉर प्रतिमा बेदी ए मोक्ष तांडव, ब्यूटीफुल काली तांडव किया, विथ हर हेयर फ्लोइंग ओवर हियर विथ बिग बिंदी एंड लाइक ए काली, एंड शी डांस वेरी ब्यूटीफुली. गुरुजी हिमसेल्फ बिगन टू प्ले द झालर, जो इवनिंग में बजाते हैं, वो किया था. सो गुरुजी का तो जो काम है इतना अद्भुत है, जैसे अभी हम देख रहे हैं गुरुजी का कि वो सुन रहे हैं. यहाँ पश्यति ऋषि ऋषि कर रहे मेरे ख्याल से. Coming down of the steps. It's unbelievable. The moment you see Guruji, your heart goes. You are. I say all your words go away from you. You watch look at him.
The way he positioned himself, that itself is so divine that you cannot evaluate or you cannot critique a person of his stature actually. So now coming to a very different area, Sunil Bhai, you have watched and you have written on all Indian classical dances, but at the same time you are a globetrotter. You have seen a lot more ballet, you have seen opera, you have seen global dance platforms, and also you have interacted with the great dance critics like Edwin Denby and others. So how do you differentiate? And you have interacted with many great dancers in West also. How do you see the differences between East and West? Is there anything? Is there a meeting point, or is there a point of dialogue between East and West? Are they completely separated, or they have certain meeting points? How do you see that?
What we can see in the technical term, when we what call nritta, pure dance, you can see how ballet excels. The moment in ballet, when you go up in the air, dance on the toes, on the heels, etc., is so marvelous. The way they take pirouettes, chakkar, is breathtaking. And the line and the way the movements are being done, the way they tune their body is amazing. Also, there's not much of abhinay that we see in ballet, but they often say that I'm marrying, so they'll show the finger, the ring, etc. They put their arm around their heart and suggest. The stories are taken, romantic stories are being there, etc. But not in the sense that we have developed Abhinay. I don't think in the world anywhere else to the minute detail Abhinay is done as is done in Indian classical dance forms. If you take Kathakali, all the eyebrows, the way they move, all the cheeks, how they move, etc. So there's a tremendous analysis about etc. and there's tremendous control. Also, like ballet also takes lifetime to study, we also have an entire life to pivot to one dance form. People, when they began to understand the depth of the Odissi dance, they wanted to learn only Odissi. When they began to learn Bharatanatyam, they wanted to learn Bharatanatyam only. They didn't want to learn any other dance form more. So, in term, when we see the parallel thing, the great dancer Nureyev, who was Washington at the Watergate Hotel, when I was interviewing him, I had asked him, and he said, "Okay, no, till you splash your blood on the floor and die, you cannot achieve the great dance form." Same thing Yamini also used to tell me that dancing is not easy, Sunil. Hours and hours, and you perform until you drop dead on the floor. So does also Birju Maharaj sometimes, or Kumudini Lakya. They say that this is a art which demands so much from you. I don't think that we can distinguish between that our is superior and that is not superior. I do believe the dance forms of West are equally magnificent. The way you see Bolshoi ballet,
But don't you see there is a point, we are completely isolated to each other. There was a time when suppose uh, Nijinsky was very close to Indian dance, and when he was learning, he was interacting, or Anna Pavlova, she was interacting with
there
Indian
was a
classical
difference.
dancers. So
Kedar,
those days are gone completely. Mark Cunningham,
no,
he was referring Indian dancers. But
but that was a difference.
where do you
Only
stop actually?
no, no,
Yeah,
they
please.
only put a thematic content. For instance, La Baya there, with Ben Devdasi. So Anna Paolo had
Mhm.
known of Devdasi when she came to India and traveled, etc. Like Ted Sean traveled. They tried to do something about dance of Shiva and etc. Or Nitinsky, Love You Blue, he played the role of Krishna, etc. But that was all. It was thematic content because they were attracted by the Indian dance form, by the philosophy of Indian dance form. But there was not in that intimate interaction. No, I only seen the thematic content taken from Indian theme for a ballet. Like there was Maurice Bejar, he had done a production called Alaripu. Alaripu taking Alaripu, and then he was making Alaripu people dance on the toes, on the heel, etc. People had not taken it very nicely. They when he began to show Ram and Sita embracing each other the way they do it in ballet, people were very upset because it offended them because the cultural difference was very big. So that sort of much elements have been not done. Maybe if the thematic content is there in a labaya there, that the sequences where many dancers have come perform, some Indian dance is also shown. But I have not yet come across anybody trying to combine the form of ballet and modern dance and Indian dance. Ha, in London, Akram Khan, who studied Kathak,
Yes, yes.
he,
I was about to come to that form actually. Yes,
but he
please.
also studied also modern dance in Netherlands. So his Kathak element may be there, as you can find in his production called Desh and all. He's used the Tatkar, etc. But by and large, their elements could be then, but there is not a fusion of this thing. To make a fusion of ballet or modern dance and Indian dance will not be very interesting. I don't believe that anybody so far has very succeeded in bringing out the combination of this fusion of these two dance forms. I have not seen so far, and I don't think because of the technique and limitations, there are limitations also by which the two
In
dance
the,
forms.
but in this context, how do you see Chandralekha? You know,
Chandralekha, yeah, Chandra also did not entirely like Uday Shankar. She utilized all the Bharatnatyam, all the instruments were Indian. Ragas were Drupad singing by Gundecha Bandhu. And what she explored were the Indian traditions, a physical tradition like yoga, Kalaripayattu, all these elements she utilized in her dance. But she wanted also to get away from the romanticism. All the women is always portrayed as a Naika, Virayini all the time waiting for Lord to come. She didn't believe in that. In a way, she was a feminist and she changed the content of the Bharatanatyam form. She also worked on the body, and the spine was considered as a metaphor. And she thought that patriarchy normally breaks the spine of the woman to subjugate a
Yes.
woman. So her trajectory was totally different. I worked with Chandralekha, staying with her and all for more than 30 years with Sadanand Menon and Rishad Patel. I found that she was an exceptional woman, thinking totally different. She wanted to liberate the form from the overuse of the mythology. She also did not like a woman's projection as a woman all the time eternally waiting for the Lord, and man doesn't come and he can go in a good time with any other woman. Now, when we look at Gita Govind, etc., there is also a philosophical content. There is a superior content which that Atma is meeting Paramatma. If you don't take Atma Paramatma, it becomes very difficult poem to relish or enjoy. Ultimately, also because aesthetics of the performance, we start liking the dance forms, etc. I do believe that Chandralekha's attempts had a great value, and she did bring a total change also. She didn't want Bharatnatyam to be an MB-peppy Bharatnatyam or a Bharatnatyam to be performed only for the male gaze, only for the entertainment of the man folk. She believed that woman has her own stature, her own dignity, and she believed in the dignity, even in the form that she called Namaskar. She said the Namaskar is not touching anybody's feet. Namaskar means a whole world universe, it is the whole body is universe. Now, these concepts are very different with her. So, I do believe about Chandralekha in a different category. As much as I would say put Kumudini Lakhya, the Kumudini Lakhya often says, I want to diverse Kathak from Krishna. I don't want Krishna all the time coming and Makanchuri, etc., but there are so many other things can be done. And as we have seen in our work of Athar Kim and all, how Kumudini, keeping the core of Kathak dance, brought so many changes over there. Taking even a poem of Sarveshwar Dayal Saxena, Kheti Be Tanga
Yeah.
Hua Kot, and she does all these things. So I believe that for all of us, you and me and Leela Venkatraman and other critics, Zopud and all, in our time, it was a time of period where we were able to see so many things happening over a period that we saw
Yeah,
the great.
yeah, there is a flow of new themes like Rama doing Lal Ded and Aruna Manti doing a lot of modern and contemporary Odia poetry, and then of course Sarmila Viswas doing a lot of new ideas coming up.
The credit has to
So,
go
but
to
you know, but Sunil Bhai, when we are talking about all this, we have reached in a point where everything has come to stand and still. This pandemic has stopped our auditoriums. It has shut down performances. There is no festival. There is no social gathering. There is no stage. In such a time, how do you see the future of Indian classical dance performances? From where, from
I,
here, where
I,
we are going to?
I think the whole idea is very pessimistic, but one doesn't get very depressed with this. Like the depression which took place in America in 1929 or the Second World War came. Now this global war has come. There is invisible enemy. We don't know what is this coronavirus. Where is going to attack you and me, and we are going to be isolated. We are positively isolated because it's important that we remain away from the contact of the disease, etc. Now we do not know when this period will go. It's very true that in last 5 months I am homebound, you are homebound. Avinash Pasra is homebound. Our the entire India Inter Center is closed. In Bombay, if you are in Delhi, and if you can't have IIC, it is like living in Paris and no Eiffel Tower. So what do we do? Now, somehow we have come to terms of all these things. I have come to terms in terms of that if the young generation who are savvy like Anita Ratnam and other people like Nathan or to go on media like Aruna Mohanty, taking classes, online classes, or what in Nrityagram, Lynn Fernandez, Rupa doing. Now, if this continues online classes also, it remains in touch with the young generation. Young
But
generation,
but
unlike you
Sunil
and I,
Bhai, but Sunil Bhai, do you really see the effect and the nuances of classical dance in
no,
online?
it is not possible with the online. But sometimes, if the camera work is very good, recently I saw one production of Navarasa done in New York, and it was telecast for
Mhm.
more than 2.5 hours, etc. it was possible to use with the camera where the nuances could be seen. I saw Ramayana but done by Sujata Mahapatra. She did item of Kilu Babu. She did item also choreographed by Ratika Mahapatra. You could distinctly see both the styles. But these, I believe, are abilities of the dancers who are already established and very great dancers. Rama Vaidyanathan, Sujata Mahapatra, Aruna Mohanty, they are not ordinary dancers. Sujata, our Vijayani Satpathy or Surupa Sen, they are wonderfully, very gifted artists there, the Ratika Mahapatra and all. Now, their attempt to bring something, even the recordings which are done by our National Center for the Performing Arts, if you see them at NCT often on Saturday night, they are telecasting, etc. They're marvelous. When I see Priyadarshini Govind with little also explanation with byline, running careers, types we can see, they enjoy. So they are going to remain enjoyable. That will help the young generation that they have to arrive at some point. They cannot give it up. If they give it up now, there's no future for them also. What will they do then? They have to do something now. So what they are doing right now is this, that they would continue with Aruna Mohanty. Aruna has worked out so many various ways of teaching on online. How she is working, presenting each dancer, separate young dancer one by one by one. So the young dancers can get their feedback from people like me and others, and they can continue. It will all depend also, Kedar, that none of us are aware of when this normal become normal. For instance, for me, it's like a dream. You cannot go back to Orissa to see Dhauli and watch Dhauli Kaling Festival. Like we came there, then we met also Kaling literary festival, we met at that time. I cannot imagine anymore. I cannot imagine of what you spoke about Raghu Rai talking about Jatin Dasi's festival documentary and showing his own film and explaining to us. That intimacy is gone. But I'm able to see today on the screen here. You are able to see me, and number of people are watching this program, would be seeing us, etc. That's the only consolation that we have. And I think that those who are optimistic, never say die people, they will not. For instance, look at our Asta with all this limitation, the never say die man, 70
Yeah,
plus.
that's the spirit actually. We can
That's
never
great
say
thing.
die.
Never say die
We
for
have
me.
al-
So,
yeah, we have already taken 57 minutes actually. So there
ah,
are a couple of questions from
all right.
audience side.
Okay,
But I still have a few more questions for you,
all right.
like your association with Peter Brooks, where he was doing Mahabharata, your association with Ghulam
Bharatnatyam.
Sheikh and Bhupen
Gulam
Kakkar,
Bhupen, today
and
Bhupen, today Bhupen
so
Kaka
yeah,
70.
that I was about to say. Today is the Punyatithi of Bhupen Kakkar, and your association with Bhupenda and Ghulam Muhammad. How you actually I just want to. I'm a little bit curious to know that Bhupen is a great painter. Ghulam Muhammad is also a great painter, and your association with painting community is great. You have many personal friends, and Jatin is your immediate
Neighbor.
neighbor actually. Jatin Das is your immediate neighbor. So just speak a little about this world where you are very close. Like dancers, you are very close to many great painters.
Alkazi Saab passed away on the 4th August. So we were under influence of Alkazi Saab also. When I came to Delhi and in Bombay, I remember in 1954, Bhupen Kakkar and Bhupen was just started painting. We were preparing for chartered accounting, but we used to attend the lectures by Alkazi Saab of the blue period of Picasso, rose period of Picasso. And then the production that we were doing on the terrace in the camp corner theater. He had built up a theater on the terrace and he was staging, waiting for Godot. We had a great luck in meeting a great literary figure called Suresh Joshi in Baroda. And Suresh Bhai
Mhm.
introduced us to Kafka, Proust, Baudelaire, Romarola, and other poets also. And when we became friends, Gulam, Bhupen, I, Pradyumna Tanna, and other painters and all, Mulkraj Anand had given us a direction of holistic attitude, like Dr. Kaila Vatsayan, that when you have interest in one art, you have to know something about other art, and if you are lucky that you have a friend like Bhupen Thakkar, you are lucky if you can meet somebody else like, say, Peter Brook. It all happened that when Bharat, this Bharat Bhavan was being built and it was inaugurated in Bhopal, Ashok Bajpai had invited Peter Brook to inaugurate it. And by happenstance, Kamaladevi Chattopadhyay told me that this morning you take Peter Brook to Sachi and show him all this culture and all. And I was a little nervous. I had met him only once in Calcutta with Shyamanand Jalan, but he's a British great director, and what can you talk with him? So I said, what will I do if I have to go in a car with this man and he will not speak, and what will I tell him? But it so happened that before I can go in a car and take his wife Natasha, Vijaya Mehta came from Bombay and settled in the room, and she came out. So I said, Vidya, would you like to come with me? Because I do not know whether this gentleman will open his mouth or not, but we can both talk in Marathi, he would understand. And let us gossip about this great guy. So Vijaya Mehta was game, she came. And for half an hour the car went, but he won't open the mouth. And I say, Vijaya, in Marathi, so what did I tell you, Vijaya? This is the trouble when they send us with the big man like Peter Brook. Then the car developed puncture and the car stopped. It was near some big tree and there was a chauraha, and I told Peter Brook that Amma, Kamla has given me breakfast. I said, let us have breakfast over here and let us sit here till the car driver comes, brings the mechanic and the car is repaired. Till then we will have some time. That was the first time he opened our mouth. I climbed the tree of Imli, a tamarind climb, and I began to take those little Imli. And I told Vijaya from the box, give me some little salt. I want to eat salt and this Imli together. So Peter Brook told me, Sunil, what is it so wonderful about it? You seem to be enjoying it. So I told very smartly, Peter, it is said that all the stolen pleasures are of great delight. I'm stealing these fruits and I'm enjoying, etc. And it broke the ice. I jumped down and came and sat next to him, and he said, tell me, Sunil, I'm told that you are a great scholar in Sanskrit and you know a lot about Mahabharata. So I began to laugh. And I looked at Vijaya. I said, Vijaya, what nonsense. Do you think you have read Mahabharata? None of us read Mahabharata. So he said that Kamla Devi says that you are a scholar and you know Mahabharata. I say, Amma has a lot of love for me, but she also doesn't know. And I don't know whether even she has read completely Mahabharata or not. So in the French embassy, there are 8 volumes, 18 volumes of Mahabharata were there, which I had shown to Peter Brook. So I told, no, Peter, I am not in Mahabharata, but I can tell you how I learned Mahabharata. So he said, okay, tell me the story. So I said the story to him about Lakshagraha that Pandavas had brought, and Duryodhana had a decision to set fire to Lakshagraha and then kill all the 5 Pandavas. So when Bhima came to know that this is the Karastan, he dug a big tunnel. And then he, at night, very cleverly put his mother on the shoulder, one brother here, one brother there, and ran away and came away. My mother said that you are so thin, dubla patla, you never even eat. And suppose the fire takes place, what will you do? So I began to cry. I said, no, ma, don't say like that. I'll be develop my muscle. I'll take you on my shoulder. I'll take you, etc. And that is how I learned the Mahabharata. He was very impressed. He said, I'm going to invite you and Vijaya to France for the Costa India. Then will you tell the story of an interview we are going to have for BBC? I said, sure, I would love to say. And I did tell the story on BBC, an interview, and Peter Brook liked it very much. When we saw his production, Kedar was a great director. He had a great
Yes,
vision.
indeed,
And
indeed.
his
Yes,
network were international. And the way he created the Corrie near Avignon in south of France, 9-hour production. First day 3 hours, next day 3 hours, then all the 9 hours together. And when Duryodhana birth takes place, it is announced that Duryodhana has ultimately become the person who will create Mahabharata, Kurukshetra and all the events that take place. At that time, there were birds flying all over. And then sound were taken which sounded like very evil thing. In the end, when all the Pandavas go up the Himalaya, very beautifully we saw early morning, 5:30 or so, the light began to come. We saw a series of people going up on the mountain for the Swarga, etc. And then when he wanted to show the Brahmastra by Ashwatthama, a big explosion took place and a big dark cloud came. It became indicative ultimately of the Hiroshima. He had a great sense of personality. We were fortunate that Mallika was playing the role of Draupadi, and we were enough to watch the
yeah. Thank you, Sunil. You know, if you will go on, you will go on and
Yes,
on.
yes,
You know,
lovely.
that's when we talk to Sunil Bhai, he is an encyclopedia because he has worked with the great maestros, the great
I mean,
legends
just
of the
lucky,
land.
lucky.
I know you can start with Mulak Rajanand, Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay, Javeri sisters, Travancore sisters, Kelucharan Mahapatra, Bipin Singh, Babulal Doshi, Kalicharan Patnaik, Deprasad Das, Pankaj Charan Das, Kalyan Sundaram Pillai, Vempati, Chinna Satyam, then Jitin
Thank
Goswami,
you, thank you. It's a great show.
Maharaj, and
Thank you for
so
your
so many.
love.
He's a legend himself actually, and it's always a pleasure to talk to Sunil Bhai. And I'm really sorry that I had to go off a couple of times due to this internet problems. But there is one question we must take, Sunil Bhai, for last. Dance is the only language of people across globe. What is the basic difference? What is the basic difference and similarities between Odissi and Bharatnatyam? There is one audience, Husan Das. He wanted to know that what is the
Oh,
basic difference and similarities between Odissi and Bharatnatyam.
see,
Please.
when you watch a Bharatanatyam, the very basic position of shift the position of the knees. The knees are turned like a triangle. That is the basic position. Whereas in Chaukabangi is like a square. And then all the dance forms like Bharatanatyam and Odissi, there are different talas, there are different ragas. There are so many differences are there in terms of costume, in terms of expression, etc. Many times the Abhinay doesn't look very different, but still the Abhinay is also very different according to what the dancer can do about the Sanchari Bhav, etc. It is more learned by watching a performance of Bharatanatyam and watching a performance of Odissi that you can make a distinction, because the dance form of Bharatanatyam has a tradition of Karnataka classical music in Bharatanatyam. Whereas Odissi has a music which is not yet defined, whether it's classical or otherwise. It's a very independent school of music, which is very enchanting. It's so Karna Madhur, Karna Priya. So that both the forms we are able to see they are so different, and also some similarity in terms of conveying the rasa theory. Ultimately, all dance forms are governed by rasa theory, and the success of the performance comes with the nishpatti. Rasa nishpatti is the ultimate touchstone of any dance form, be it Bharatanatyam or be it Odissi. But these are some general basic observations about this form. Maybe sometime next week they'll talk more about it, because you are saying I'm unstoppable. When you provoke me, I can go on and on. Thank you,
Yeah,
Kalyan, for
when
the festival.
when we talk to Sunil Bhai, I believe that 1% we could not cover actually. So there remain another 99% to be covered, because we can talk about your association with Satriya dance of Assam. We can talk about your association with Kumudini Lakhiaji. We can talk about your book on Kathak and your association with Birju Maharaj ji. And so there are so many things to talk, and particularly professionally we can talk about your association with Avinash Pasricha, the most gifted photographer of our time, Leela Venkatramanji, our very esteemed dance critic and our great friends. And we are really happy that Sunil Bhai as our friend, philosopher, and guide. And thank you very much, Sunil Bhai, for being so kind to join us in this platform. And I thank you on behalf of Kalinga Literary Festival, and thank Rasmi, Sitansu, and all the members of Devasis, Devamitra, and others of Kalinga Literary Festival team. So see you in next session with someone else, with some another legend. But thank you very much again, Sunil Bhai, to talk about legends of our time.
Sure, we'll do that next time.
It's a wonderful opportunity. Thank you very much.